Happy training camp debut week. Welcome in. It's the PHNX Cardinals podcast, your premier Arizona Cardinal podcast. Like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star wherever you get your programming. Become a diehard. Go PHNX.com. Pick up a free piece of merch like this fine MHJT. Welcome back, my fearless co-host, Mr. Brack, just in time as the Arizona Cardinals and the rest of the Valley. We get ready for Banner 2024 with our precious Redbirds. Damon, Dawg, behind the mic. Fellas, how we living?
We're living well, my man. I love that MHJ t-shirt. Looks great. And as you said, it is Players Report Eve. That's right. The helmets, the cleats, they're hung with care with hopes that JG Claus will soon be there. It's going to be fantastic. Tomorrow, maybe a little conditioning tests. I don't know. And then the first practice on Wednesday. Can't wait.
We are here. We've made it. We've arrived. Again, the offseason, it was bountiful, right? We were good little boys and girls. The roster is improved. How much of it has been improved in terms of wins this year, that remains to be seen. Are the Cardinals going to be playoff contenders, or will they disappoint? You know our opinion at this point. I think the Cardinals are in a great spot to contend in 2024, and we're fired up to be on that journey with all of you. What's up, everybody in the chat? Ozzy, my guy, saying the best community. We've got Merv, Illini McGee, Jessica, Mr. Fat Gangster, Shafe is here, Classy Nasty. Everybody, welcome in, and fired up to have Bo Brock back on Football Monday.
I like that comment from the Art of Being Free. New to the chat, but love to get the dynamic duo back in action just in time. That's right. Tried to sneak in a little vacay before the whistle blew or kicked off on the season, and here we are. And we're going to talk to Craig Morgan. He's going to join us here later in the show. 10 burning questions. We collaborated on it. I'll say loosely collaborated. It was mostly Craig putting in the work on this one, but 10 burning questions going in the Cards camp, and it's fantastic already at gophnx.com.
Listen, anytime the Bo and I can take credit for anything Craig Morgan writes, we will happily do so.
Make careers out of it.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. So we're fired up to talk to Craig, and fired up to join him and Bo later this week at training camp. We've got full coverage beginning on Wednesday at practice. So fired up, as Bo mentioned, conditioning tomorrow. And again, not a lot comes out of that until what? JG and company meet with the media, meet with you and everybody else, Bo, and they tell us so-and-so didn't pass and they're going to try again. Hopefully that's not the case. Do you have any predictions ahead of conditioning tomorrow?
Not so much conditioning. I highly anticipate like John Gaines being on PUP, somebody who we didn't see during OTAs, wear a uniform, get out there, practice it all, still recovering from, the knee injury that he suffered in the preseason finale. And then trying to think who else could be a candidate. But I would think that the Cardinals relatively have clean bill of health. And for the first time in a long time, I mean, you can even include, as it came up on my social media memories, like Kyler a couple of years ago, yesterday signed his huge extension. But that training camp, he had COVID. He dealt with a couple, I know he had an arm issue at that point. We barely saw Kyler in Cliff's final training camp. And then last year, of course, we didn't see Kyler outside of him hanging out with JG on the sidelines in training camp.
Perfect transition. Kyler Murray, his last two training camps, Bo, not ideal for a variety of reasons you just outlined. This year, a little bit more low-key, just business as usual. He picks off where he left off. By the way, he was front and center with old Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey Benson during the WNBA All-Star game here in Phoenix. Great to see Kyler out in the community. Great to see Kyler at training camp this week. And speaking of Kyler Murray, this was interesting. Tom Pelissero guest hosted the Rich Eisen podcast last week and talked about a variety of topics, previewed the NFC West and specifically the Arizona Cardinals. And he had this nugget to share, which I think is interesting. If we could see this, Damon, talking about Kyler Murray as it relates to being an MVP candidate. This is ambitious. It's something that's come up a bunch of times, said Pelissero. When I've interviewed Trey McBride, I've talked to other people with the Cardinals, Paris Johnson Jr. as well. They don't think it's crazy to talk about Kyler Murray as a dark horse MVP candidate. They think that's in Murray. Pelissero then continues on with the comments on the QB1 for the Arizona Cardinals. Remember last year, he's coming off a serious injury, wasn't ready, obviously, at the start of the year, comes in, plays, lost a lot of time on task with Drew Petzing's offense. Now, and this is what you emphasize, Bo, get a healthy offseason. Everybody said positive things about how Kyler's preparing, which has always been something that people have harped on when speaking about him. You gave him Marvin Harrison Jr., so Kyler Murray still is in his prime athletically, still can make people miss like anybody this side of Lamar Jackson. It's a matter of harnessing that and trying to get the most out of it. So again, something that we've been going on, does Tom Pelissero, Bo, the entirety of the offseason. And it's really, I go back to this. It's Kyler Murray. They had every opportunity to pivot off of him. They doubled and tripled down on him. Why? Again, we can call us homers. We can sit here. We can look at preseason ratings and USA Today and Vegas and everything else. If Kyler Murray's teammates view him as an MVP candidate, the Cardinals are going to be just fine this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of belief in Kyler Murray, as there should be. I mean, if he's happy, if he's healthy, if he's motivated, if he's locked in, we've seen the skill set, right? I mean, we saw it at the start of the 2021 season. Now, it's been 2 very trying seasons for different reasons in between that, and he has a lot to prove. And I think that that's what Cardinals fans want to see most out of the gates from Kyler Murray, is that, a lot of this hype that we've seen this offseason that we saw at the end of the regular season last year, that you can believe in it, that you can trust that. A little context to Pelissero, like he loaded that question up for McBride and said, do you believe he can win the MVP? And I don't think any teammate of somebody or a quarterback would say, no, I don't see it, right? I mean, to be fair, but I mean, we know that Kyler Murray can play at an MVP caliber clip. Can he put it together? Can he stand the test of the marathon season for 17 games? Can he put up those gaudy numbers, and can the Cardinals win enough games? I think that's why he'll remain in the dark horse part of this, tier of this. But at the same time, like if you just get a healthy Kyler Murray and he plays consistently the entire season, Cardinals are going to be in a great spot.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't going to, have any sympathy for me bringing up 2021 statistics. They don't have the patience for it or the time for it. Here's what I will say. This is a player under Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury, who had 20 touchdowns in his first 7 games of the 2021 season. And yeah, that was with D-Hop and Christian Kirk. But again, like I would put these skill players this year comparable to that. I think far significantly superior coaching staff, offensive philosophy, right? The guy had 17 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns in 7 games that year, not including the Packer game that they lost. And then he had to go on injured reserve for some time.
And he was dealing in that final drive. I mean, it's not his fault that AJ Green didn't turn around on that final play. I mean, Kyler was putting together a signature moment.
You're right.
And it's unfortunate he was robbed of that. But yeah, I mean, here's the difference, right? The sustainability, right? That we believe is here and in place, not only with the quarterback himself, but with the coaching staff, with the play caller, Drew Petzing, and with the playmakers surrounding Kyler Murray and what they want to do, how they want to establish the run first and how that's going to open things up for Kyler Murray in this passing attack. I think that, you see that stretch at the beginning of the 2021 season, and it's exciting because it shows you that if you put him in the right situation, what he can produce. But now it's just like, okay, I think now if he stays healthy and he's and Petzing's in his bag as a play caller and you've got, these playmakers healthy and surrounding you all season long, like that's where you get giddy with excitement for this offense that's led by Kyler Murray.
It's almost like, and this is not disrespectful to the teams that they play, certainly in the AFC West, really has nothing to do with the schedule this year. I know we had Aaron Schatz on the podcast, audio only, and check out the interview we did with him over the weekend. He said, the Cardinals have the 6th hardest strength of schedule. And it's like, awesome. I remember at the end of last year, Cardinals had the toughest strength of schedule for Kyler Murray down the stretch in those 8 games. He had a 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio throwing the football. That doesn't include rushing touchdowns. Kyler Murray has showed you over his career, if he plays, he is going to post at minimum 2 touchdowns to 1 turnover. So again, if he plays, 17 games and he's got 28 passing touchdowns, he's going to have 14 picks with that. So I think he's competing against the war of attrition throughout 17 games. That's it. Like, we have a sample size now of Kyler Murray, yes, produces when he's healthy. It's not healthy enough, specifically at the end of the season. Now, They have, that being Jonathan Gannon, Monti, Ossenfort, and Drew Petzing, revamped this offense, this offensive line, this run game, where it's not all on Kyler Murray. And I think that's why we're all so bullish on this now, because it keeps him upright. It allows him to operate at a high level, to facilitate to his playmakers, and lean on a run game that was top 5 in the NFL last year. Like, if you're telling me, and this is the argument I continue to make, put MVPs aside and accolades and Pro Bowls or whatever, that stuff takes care of itself. If Kyler Murray plays 17 games this year, they will be in playoff contention, and he will have a historic statistical season, because that's all we've ever known from him. He had 10 touchdowns to 5 picks in the final 8 games last year, with a receiving core that oftentimes would disappear. They would announce during broadcasts, a receiver hasn't caught a pass in 2.5 quarters for this group. And again, that's not a knock on Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch. It's just the reality of the situation they were thrust into. Now look at this receiving core with MHJ, second year of Michael, Greg Dortch, Trey McBride. I mean, it's easy why people are kind of perking up and they're saying, well, yeah, I mean, the Cardinals, they should put up gaudy numbers offensively if Kyler Murray can stay healthy.
Well, and also just the emphasis on timing in this offense, and how when you're just trying to develop that rapport, and when you're on PUP, like Kyler was to start the season, and he can't practice, he can't even, take snaps from his center at that point. He doesn't have the ability to develop that rapport with any of these wide receivers. He's not able to work out like he's been doing away from the facility, like he just, showed that he did with his entire complement of playmakers at UCLA last week, where they're out there working on that rhythm and timing. And Michael Wilson has emphasized many times, like, how on point you have to be as a quarterback and a wide receiver in order for it to work. And if you're just a millisecond off, you go 0 for 8 on your targets to receptions, right? Like they did during that stretch before they got on the same page again in Philadelphia. And then they just took off as a battery. And that you expect that with nearly the entire complement of wide receivers and playmakers for Kyler Murray. And I think that's why people, the excitement level is reached, where it was, or where it kind of left off. And it was the worst cliffhanger, for lack of a better word or name there, like cliffhanger since 2021 season, right? Because it was just, there was some lost time there for this playmaking quarterback that the Cardinals, best homegrown quarterback they've ever had.
I mean, like, when you're in a position to have a quarterback accumulate 30 plus touchdowns, which I feel like is very much in the realm of possibility for Kyler Murray, you are in the postseason picture. You are most likely in the postseason. Like, again, I understand people are critical. PFF, I either was PFF or ESPN, somebody ranked the Cardinals front 7 last in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
I think based off projections and unknown, and that's fine. You do what you want with that. Like Baker Mayfield threw 28 touchdown passes last year. Tampa Bay was a playoff team. Like, I make fun of Derek Carr on this show every other week.
Yeah.
And they were like a game outside of the postseason. He threw like 26 touchdowns. If it's cliche, but it's like, you want to use analytics. Kyler Murray has 30 touchdowns this year. The Cardinals are going to the playoffs. Like, you can tell me anything else, what Marv does, what Budda does.
We're knocking on the door. I think knocking on the door is safe.
I'll go ahead and say
type of production from that position.
I'll make a prediction. If he has 30 touchdowns, they're going to the playoffs.
You're bolder than I am. I mean, we've seen it happen with Geno Smith. Geno Smith was, the 2022 version of Baker Mayfield last year, right? Yeah. Where Geno reached 30 touchdown passes, and you got consistent play from that team. And it took a team that many people expected was going to be in the beginning of a rebuild. Yeah. You just get consistent quarterback play. Like the Rams were projected to be a top 10 drafting team last year, and they're in the thick of the playoff hunt. And then you get that consistent play, and then having another gear like Kyler does, that's where people. That's where the excitement really kicks in for Cardinals fans.
Yeah, if he accounts for 2 touchdowns a game, right? That's 32 touchdowns, 34 now with 17 game schedule. Yeah. James Conner mixes in, or you get some kind of a rushing touchdown. That's 21 points. And then you get 2 field goals. That's 27 points per game.
Right.
That's a top 12.
Well, they already when he came back, they already averaged 22 points per game, which was a touchdown better than when the offense was running without Kyler.
I'm sorry. They were averaging how many points without him? 15 points per game?
Yeah, full touchdown without Kyler. I think it was like 16 without, 22 with.
I mean, it's just,
and that's him just kind of cutting his teeth in this offense.
Right. I mean, the training, I don't want to say the training wheels were on as a sign of disrespect. It literally, they were just trying to find something to build upon for this year, right? That's what those 8 games were about at the tail end of last season. And they were 2 missed field goals away from being 4-4. With, I would argue, considerably less talent and personnel. And I'm not just talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. Defensively. Yeah. What the Cardinals were trotting out at the end of last year just was not it. And there are going to be points this
year.
Scotch
tape and popsicle sticks, man. I mean, especially up front. And they got 0 production from the pass rush.
There are going to be times this year where the defense is going to help Kyler and the offense win a game or 2. Hopefully more than that. I don't know how often that's going to be early on.
That shouldn't be so profound. Like, there's going to be times where the defense is going to be good.
I have concerns about the first 6 to 8 games, but I think we're all managing our expectations until about Halloween, and then got some favorable matchups. But I just feel like this narrative, it's just like when you watch Kyler Murray play football and he throws that football from the pocket, and you see the traits that made him the first overall pick. All they have to figure out, in my opinion, put the study stuff aside and all the BS. Can they keep him healthy for 17 weeks? Can they keep him off of the injury report? If that happens, I fully believe, I know Ozzy put it in the chat, they are going to be a playoff team. Like the NFC, which boasts, again, as you mentioned, Geno Smith now with no Pete Carroll. There are teams that in the year of our football Lord 2024 are starting Daniel Jones. There are teams that are employing Cliff Kingsbury as their offensive coordinator. There are teams, again, that are doubling down on horrific quarterback play in the NFC South and what's going on with the Cowboys, and everybody's all over the Chicago Bears, even though they're led by a rookie and J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold. No. Kyler Murray has been in this league for half a decade plus. And when he's healthy, they have been a consistent playoff contender. So I have no reason to think otherwise. As far as an MVP, I mean, like, again, they would have to really sneak up on a lot of teams. They have maybe one nationally televised game. I say maybe because no one will be able to find it on ESPN Plus, and that factors into it. But to be an MVP quarterback, you got to win the division, and you got to get a top 1 to 2 seed, and you got to put up vaulting numbers.
Yeah.
And something that Kyler Murray is certainly capable of.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 12, 13 wins. It's pretty daunting. But if he gets into the conversation like Baker Mayfield did last year, where people are like, whoa, given the right situation, we see why this guy was 1-1.
Right.
What makes this guy so special? So that's all you're looking for. Like, lay the groundwork, right? For maybe 2025 for people to make a lot of noise that offseason, start turning people into some believers, turn some heads, not just Kyler Murray. Like we talk about this. It seemed like every other show we were talking about another disrespectful, ranking on this Cardinals team. It's like, start to prove people wrong. Start to prove the doubters wrong. Change the narrative around this organization that it's not just year 2 of a rebuild. And like, if you see some nice things, great. No, like, make some noise in this really tough division.
Do you envision any scenario? And to me, this is, if you answer this question, no, then that says everything. Is there any scenario in which this year, Kyler Murray, you'll have concerns about moving forward with Kyler Murray outside of health? Like, hypothetically, because for me, they were able to overachieve at the end of last year. And, certainly the halftime of the Eagles game, the Bears game wasn't great, but there were very few times where I'm like, they're going to have to look at a quarterback in the draft. They got to pivot off of him. Do you envision at any point this year, I know we're just about to kick off training camp, you being in a position to say, like, outside of health, like, maybe Kyler Murray's not the guy?
Man, I mean, it would take some extremely poor play
that we've never seen from him before.
Right. And knowing what the floor is and seeing how he struggled in 2022, and you still saw, signs of life. It's tough. It's tough to think about. But look, if the who you believe as of right now, as a day before the players report, like, you think they've got a good play caller in place and he's got good playmakers, and the offense is stagnant and not putting up points, and you could maybe even point to the defense and say that's, the superior be part of the football side of the football, then yeah, I think you start to have some tough conversations. But yeah, what are we doing here on July 22nd? Bringing up
Well,
that
I just feel like
conversation.
I feel like that it kind of answers itself. Like there are going to be games this year where we're going to go on a post game show and we're going to be critical of Kyler Murray based on his play, but I don't think that's going to be a trend.
Yeah.
Like there are going to be games where he's outplayed by an opposing quarterback, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. But I think when you even it out over 17 games, if he's healthy, you're going to get more good than bad.
Right.
Which is going to put you in a position to make the playoffs, which is going to keep you viable.
Right.
And talking about somebody who's got a youthful team, who himself is only in his mid-20s, who's locked up now long-term. Good Lord, Jordan Love could be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL by the end of the week, apparently. Right. Kyler Murray is going to be on the outside looking in of the top like 7 or 8 guys. You put all that together, and it's like, what more could you ask for as a Cardinal fan?
Yeah.
Is, hey, we're trending up. Our quarterback more often than not gets it done. We're viable. The young team is meshing together. And to your point, just like last year was to get momentum into this year is about laying the foundation for hopefully the next 3 to 5 years of consistent contention. Now, some years you might be more viable based on personnel and how the ball breaks and whatever. But I do really believe, like, it's crazy. If he plays 16, 17 games, they are going to be in contention. I don't envision him having like a 5-12 year being healthy.
Right. And like that does not mean that they're not going to have, or he's not going to have performances like we saw in Houston.
Correct.
Against Chicago on Christmas Eve. Like,
and he'll own those.
That's the NFL. Like, I mean, the other side gets paid too. They're going to have a good scheme, and they're going to take away, playmakers, or they're going to shut down Kyler Murray, and you're going to sit and say, hey, the offense and Kyler, they didn't get it done today. Mm-hmm. But when you look back at the entire, picture of the 2024 season, you hope that there's more good than bad. And I think that's what you saw, especially at the end of the regular season last year, where people were so encouraged by Kyler Murray's play in this offense going forward.
Your point exactly hits home. They go to Houston. Kyler didn't perform great. They go on the road to Pittsburgh. They beat the Steelers. Yeah. Last year, they lose to Chicago. People are burying him. Not great. We're critical on our post-game show. The very next week, he puts up 3 touchdowns and leads a comeback effort against the Eagles. And again, that was with a team. The roster was not ideal. So, right. I think we're going to have streaks this year.
You're going to look for more consistency. Like, you want less of an uneven season, for sure.
I think you take what you could get last year. And very promising. Kyler Murray, again, this is one of the most anticipated seasons for, I think, a singular Cardinal football player in some time, because I really do think, health permitting, it's going to go one of two ways. Either he cements himself as the real QB of the future of this team, and people are going to be sitting back in a year from now thinking, what were we ever contemplating moving off of this guy for? It's going to be Jared Goff 2.0. Or if he can't stay healthy, then that decision's going to take care of itself. Let's get to some of these super chats here. Illadre 199, friend of the program. Welcome back, Bo Brock.
Thank you, my man. I appreciate that. Thank you for the 199 and the love. Illadre. How about our guy Trenton Smith jumping in with a 499 super chat? Haven't been this excited to start a season in forever. Thanks for helping us get through the offseason, JV and Bo. I'm going to throw Damon Dawg in there and Craig. LFG, MHJ, ROY, the Rookie of the Year 2024. What do you think? Is MHJ going to get it done?
I think he's going to make the Pro Bowl. I think it's going to be tough for him to win Rookie of the Year if one of the rookie QBs makes the playoffs. So I will still give the edge to Caleb Williams, but I think Marv is going to be playing Pro Bowl football in Hawaii this year.
Our guy MP's back donating to the program. We appreciate this. Look at MP. Cardinals trash, the end.
I just complimented the Bears. Now I regret it. Come on, MP. Man,
Bears lover, Cardinals hater. He drops by and donates and super chats throughout shows. It's great, though. Thank you, MP.
We appreciate it. And good Lord, what will MP do? Will he change his avatar for a third time if Caleb Williams underperforms this year, going from Justin to Caleb to whomever, especially if the Cardinals beat that ass later on this year? Big game in early November here in the Valley. You can bet on it actually right now with our friends at Bet365. Never ordinary. Again, you can feel it in the air here, even though in Phoenix it's about 110 right now. NFL season just right around the corner. I'm going to be betting. I'm going to be betting during the regular season. How about during the preseason? We got the Hall of Fame game right around the corner. Those odds are live right now. And Bet365 is going to hook you up with the bonus code PHNX365. That's because Bet365 has 90 million users worldwide. They also stream 780,000 events each year. Big time players as they partner with us here at PHNX Sports. And we couldn't be more fired up. Again, NBA, NFL, NHL, Major League Baseball, and more. They pioneered live in-game betting, and they also hook you up with early payouts. We love it. I'm waiting for my money when it's available. They're going to hook you up again with the bonus code PHNX365. Sign up right now. Download the app. Everybody go to your mobile device, your smartphone. Sign up, deposit just $10, right? Then place a bet of just $5 on anything you want. You're going to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. People have been sending me their tickets, their tickets, so they're winning bets, using those bonus bets. Love that. But if you're looking to go a little bit bigger, place an offer up to $1,000 with the bonus code.
Wow.
And if your qualifying bet loses, you're going to receive those matched refunds in bonus bets. So if you put a $1,000 bet down and you lose, which I hope that you don't lose, but if you lose, you get those bonus bets back and you get a chance to make whole again. But you got to do it right now with our friends at Bet365. Never ordinary. They are extraordinary, especially with those same game parlays. I love clicking the little box. I'm ready to get in on the same game parlays this fall with the NFL season in full effect. Download it now. You got to be 21 years and older and physically located here in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. Text NEXT STEP to 53342 or visit problemgambling.az.gov, Bo.
Drove my way through Haboob yesterday and getting back into town, and then enjoyed the nice. Did you guys get hit by the monsoon yesterday, Johnny, in your area?
A little bit of rain, a little bit of. It was nice. It dropped the temperature about 10 degrees.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I walked my dog in the evening. It was nice.
The perfect monsoon companion is Four Peaks Bad Birdie. Of course, it's the beer of the summer. Damon Dawg has spoken. It is the beer of the summer, the Bad Birdie Gold Nail. Check it out for yourself, or the Wow Wheat, #1 wheat beer in the state of Arizona, all brewed over our friends Four Peaks. Gear you up for football season. How about that Redbird lager? All brewed 8th Street in Tempe. It's the OG location. You got Four Peaks, great food. It's not just bar food. It's apps, it's entrees, it's desserts that all pair perfectly with the beer brewed right there on location. Can't make it out to 8th Street? Well, go find them at your Circle K, or you can find their beer locator on their website, fourpeaks.com. Follow them on your socials as well, at Four Peaks Brew, at Four Peaks Pub. Must be 21 years or older to enjoy Four Peaks beer. We also ask that you do it responsibly.
I am not responsible. I was on the interweb earlier today, and I was looking up early releases for pumpkin porter. And I don't think they have any official drops yet this year, but there are a couple places like in the valley that maybe have some inventory from last year. Like this time last year, I had hoarded some in my garage fridge, and it was my go-to to get me into fall season. I don't have that this year. So I'm tempted. If I'm going to be out in the West Valley this week, we're going to have chicken and pickle. We got our tournament this Saturday, pickleball. And then, of course, we've got training camp. There's a couple locations in like Peoria that have some pumpkin porter. So I might just detour
You're sick,
off the interstate. Yeah. And then go grab some, because I just can't wait. It's like, we're talking
weeks here. They're going to tap those kegs, freshly brewed pumpkin porter, and you're going to be drinking the old stuff.
Well, you got to do what you got to do to get by, I guess.
Yeah.
We talk about Christmas Eve for training camp. I need my pumpkin porter from Four Peaks.
Speaking of beer takes, we got our guy Craig Morgan coming on it. Craig, you're a known, is it IPA hater?
I am a known IPA hater, but also a pumpkin porter lover.
Okay.
By the way, does pumpkin porter age? I mean, you can make that argument at least, right? Maybe it's
absolutely
aged.
Like a fine wine. Is that what we're talking about? I know they barrel age everything over at Four Peaks, and everything that they put in those whiskey barrels, it just comes out so smooth.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm ready to. I love summer. I love summer in Arizona. I don't care what anybody says. I'm kind of over pool season. Like, get me to the fall. Give me to football. Give me to fall festivals. Give me to pumpkin porter. I'm ready to hit the start button, just like our guy Craig Morgan hit the start button yesterday. Go PHNX.com. 10 burning questions ahead of training camp. Now, full transparency, I have this. I want everybody to check it out, but I do think it's funny. Craig got this article out yesterday, and then I saw a lot of like questions pertaining to the Cardinals from other outlets today. So I want to give Craig a shout out because it was the first place that I was able to find with these questions laid out. It was my training camp primer, and I appreciate that, Craig.
Well, I don't want this to turn into a love fest, but you guys played a major hand in this. Legit, do not know where I would have been on this story without your help. Bo was helping me while he was driving to San Diego to go on vacation. Then I bugged you. I don't even remember when I bugged you on the weekend, but you were there for me, so it's much appreciated. And I think about this. You talk about getting sick of summer. You guys got to be sick about talking off season. Like talking about snubs, talking about all the stuff that you've had to talk about all this time. It's finally time to talk about what's happening on the field.
I agree with that. Like Johnny was kind of outlining the unofficial start to fall, which I think is when pumpkin spice lattes hit the scene. When Craig Morgan, now you can just set it, whenever he has his 10 burning questions drop, that's going to be the unofficial start to training camp.
I like that. Let's make it a yearly thing.
But as far as look, I'll never get sick of talking off season because like off season, you can talk about really, you can go any direction with it.
It's true.
You don't actually have results that you have to say, well, they lost and we got to pick up the pieces. Here it's just like this ranking stinks and let me tell you about it. So selfishly, I kind of like the offseason.
I like draft stuff, but not this part of it. This part of it, I'm so sick and tired of. The draft, though, that could last forever. I'd be happy.
All right.
It almost did this year. The draft season, tongue in cheek, it nearly killed us in preparing for holding the line for one MHJ. Like that could have taken a really dark turn. Usually it doesn't end that well for your boys. But here's what I will say, Craig. This year, it's much easier to talk about this team, and it's outlined in your burning questions compared to like this time last year. We're like, we were hopeful, but we knew what we were signing up for. Like your first burning question for anybody who hasn't seen it, Kyler Murray's health. Like, can he quiet the doubters from a health perspective? Because if you check that box, as I made an argument in the first segment, Craig, a lot of good things are going to happen for the Cardinals if Kyler Murray stays healthy.
Yeah. And that's true of any NFL team, right? But not a lot of NFL teams have a guy who you can believe, okay, if he's healthy and he's playing like we know he can play, we got a chance. There's still only like a dozen of those guys in the NFL. This is such a difficult position. I'm going to dive into this more as we go through camp. But yes, question number one, the overriding question, the thing that will define this entire season, we all know it. It's Kyler Murray.
Yeah, and it's huge. And the last time you actually were covering this team, they had one of those guys, Carson Palmer. And I remember Carson Palmer at that time was kind of on a bit of a pitch count. They had outlined like how he's going to look throughout training camp and preseason. There's none of that going on with Kyler, as we'll ask Gannon, like if there is kind of a schedule for Kyler. I know we had one with Colt McCoy last year, but very different circumstances as he was coming off of a unknown arm procedure that never kind of rebounded. But be interesting to see how they kind of incorporate Kyler this entire training camp.
How much do you guys believe in just the vibe thing? We've talked about it. We heard from Kyler Murray and it just felt different. How much do you buy into that just the feeling around this team is different so it could lead to better results?
I mean, I'll put my Homer hat on and say a lot because I watched Kyler Murray be an MVP candidate for 9 weeks. And we found out later he and his coach did not have a strong relationship. And the offense was figured out quickly by the NFL. And again, it sounds like I'm putting everything on Cliff Kingsbury. I'm not. But like, can you imagine, like, you're a talented individual and you're kind of fledgling around an organization, a company, and then they have new ownership come in and they have a structure that elevates you instead of trying to bring you down. And you feel like the entire time, hey guys, I got you to the postseason, right? I'm trying to make you viable. This was the number one pick. I was a top 10 pick in 2 pro sports, and I was a Heisman winner in Oklahoma. And so now I just feel like, and I said this, I don't know if it was Damon or somebody recently, like I feel like Kyler Murray, this is his team in large part because there's youth on this team and people look to him for leadership. And I feel like too many times, I think I said this to you, Bo, right before you took off, too many times with the Arizona Cardinals, Steve Keim would come in, maybe with Michael Bidwell, with Cliff Kingsbury, and say like, hey, you know what? I'm not seeing what I want from K1. Let's get J.J. Watt in here. Let's get Rodney Hudson. Let's get A.J. Green. Let's get all these veterans in here to just kind of lead for us. And I also just feel like Kyler Murray, he's had these leading intangibles before. I think he's just been empowered now by this organization.
Well, and the decision makers, the powers that were in place before, like they knew the importance of Kyler Murray, but clearly not enough to really put him in a position to be successful, truly be successful, give him the tools to go through the maturation process that, young players like Kyler Murray go through. Like they take their lumps. I feel like it came to a head in year 4 where, they had just been relying a whole lot on his skill set and didn't give him the opportunity to truly develop, especially from that leadership standpoint. And now we're starting to see that. Like when you do put the right people around him and give him the right tools. I mean, I'm watching the flight plan today that released last week. And Tajon Palmer, when we talked to him in studio, Johnny, he mentioned this little, parting words in the huddle from Kyler Murray. And he's saying, hey, like, I'm sick and tired of losing. I want to win now. I want to win a Super Bowl. Now, some people might, scoff at that, roll their eyes at that. But that I love seeing that from Kyler Murray, because I don't know if we would have seen that 2 years ago.
Yeah, I feel like one thing that I've gained for all the time that I've been covering sports is a BS detector. Like you hear this hype all the time. Every preseason with teams, it's we're hopeful, we think we can be a playoff team. You learn to hear through that. You learn to read when it's real and when it's just this. And it just felt so different when Kyler Murray was talking. And you talk about the coaching situation. That's one thing. The GM as well. I covered Steve Keim while he was the GM here, but it does feel like he's also come of age. He's at the right age now to assume control of this team, to be the guy, to be the leader, not to have to look to any of those other guys anymore.
Yeah, and I just feel like this isn't talked about enough. Like there was a resentment with Keim and Cliff to Kyler Murray. Like I think they resented the success that he had, and it's their own quarterback, and he got paid. And even like with a little bit with Michael Bidwell, it's just like it never felt like they fully embraced him.
Could have kept Rosen. I mean,
like he literally saved Steve Keim's job. He got Cliff Kingsbury extended and got generational wealth that he can live off of for the rest of his life, that he's going to continue to be paid out for. And for whatever reason, those guys couldn't stand each other. And then you got new people that have come in, and I'll sing this till the cows come home, probably had Michael Bidwell's blessing, had every opportunity to say, go get somebody else. Go get somebody else. There's fucking 5 quarterbacks in the top 10 this year. Go pick which one you want. And they said, no, we're okay. We're going to roll with this guy. No one talks about that nationally. And it blows my mind when we're hyping up JJ McCarthy and Jaden Daniels over Kyler Murray. And it's just like these guys with options, Monti Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon, have cachet and they have options. And they told everybody, we're good. We're going to double and triple down on this guy. That was their out clause, was this draft this year. And they said, shove it. We're going to take a receiver. We're going to elevate him. That should tell everybody, like, we're set at the position, health permitting.
Yeah. And speaking of that wide receiver, I look at this list. Number 6 is Marvin Harrison Jr., the next great Cardinals receiver. We'll get back to some that I skipped over, but I went down to 6. This is my belief, guys, as we sit here on the eve of players reporting. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to hijack training camp. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the talk of training camp. I think he's going to be undeniable as far as what Cardinals fans, what they want to hear about, what they're going to hear about, because what he could potentially put on display starting this week.
And they're going to get to see him, right?
Yeah,
you get to
starting.
See,
yes,
when just the simple optics of watching this guy on the field. Once you're standing there and realizing, good God, how are we the same species? Because his athleticism and his speed and his height, it's just an absurd combination. And now they're going to get a first-hand look at it, close-up look at it.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I want a freak show. I want all the highlights on social media. I want everybody to be buzzing because, again, like, this guy's all about football. This guy isn't about his image, his ego. You saw it in that Hard Knocks clip. This is his time to shine. The offseason, he sat it out. He focused on training to be able to have a camp. And again, like, this isn't a knock on the cornerbacks for the Arizona Cardinals. They don't have prime Patrick Peterson to line up against Marvin Harrison Jr., albeit as a rookie. Like, so he's going to have an opportunity to go up against some guys that we're excited about, but at the same time, like, they don't have a ceiling of, in my opinion, MHJ. So I think, Bo, to your point, that lends itself to big explosive plays. Like, Cardinal fans especially deserve that. And God bless the fans that came out last year and watched Colt McCoy point every other possession because he couldn't throw the football. And we were fired up about Michael Wilson, but there wasn't a ton to fill the stadium with.
Right.
Now it's like, hey, training camp is free. Red and white scrimmage is free. Come out and watch this guy because you're going to be hopefully watching him for the next 10 years.
Right. I actually had to go to family members and I said, hey, the red white scrimmage, it's still free. Last time I told them to come out was 2022 Camp Country Club there.
Oh, God.
And it was the worst. You and I were there, Johnny. It was the worst. Like nothing happened. People just sat around and just twiddled their thumbs for 2 hours. It was just brutal. I'm like, no, you should come out. Like, this is going to be fun. This is a competitive team. You're going to see some freaks on display. And Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, we talked to Kaiser White, who's a veteran linebacker, been in this league for a while now. And we're talking about who you like to match up with or who you like to see match up with. And he can't stop from saying Marvin Harrison Jr.
And I mean, get you fired up. I have no concerns about the offense in all actuality. Like I do have some concerns, Craig, and we talked about it off air about the pass rush. And I want to bring this up because I think it's notable. So Damon's second love, the Miami Dolphins, they lost an edge rusher to retirement over the weekend in Shaq Barrett. So they are doing what Bo and I believe the Cardinals need to do, and they're hosting a bunch of veterans today. Yannick Ngakoue and Agba and a bunch of guys. Yet you outlined in your burning questions, like despite the lack of edge pressure, especially at the end of last year, they are doubling down on Zaven Collins and B.J. Ojulari. I think that is outside of K1's health, that could define the season for this team, their decision to do that.
Why do you get the sense that they are doing that? Why wasn't this addressed? Could it still be addressed?
I hope so. I think Mike McDaniels is an offensive coach and they need bodies. Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rawls probably take immense pride in being able to say we can generate it with the additions we've made elsewhere. I don't know that, but I feel like they think they love Zaven Collins to death, even though he may never account more than a rotational guy. And then B.J. Ojulari was their handpicked guy. So they probably think we don't have an excuse to bring in a Yannick Ngakoue. We got to make it work with these guys. But I see Bo's like tilting his head. Is that might be a stubborn mindset that gets killed early in the season.
I mean, we talked about the quarterback position and the lack of movement to kind of be the bridge to Kyler Murray is probably the main mistake that they made last offseason and going into the regular season without Kyler Murray for those 10 games. Is the lack of movement at pass rush going to be kind of the glaring mistake that they made? It has big time potential. Like I see why they would probably have some confidence that Zaven Collins and B.J. Ojulari and they like Dennis Gardeck can step up. But at the same time, like, is that a bit arrogant to think that you can turn these guys in and get enough production? But also keep in mind, like, there is proof there that they were able to take kind of this no-name pass rush group through 11 weeks last season, and it was top 12. Like, as far as sacks and TFLs, like, they were very productive out of nowhere, but then that production fell off a cliff.
Yep.
Can they get the consistent pressure enough to kind of sustain through the long haul of a 17-game season? Like, hopefully that's not something that they look back on and say, hey, maybe one guy could have been the difference. Maybe throwing the bag at a Danielle Hunter or being in the conversations with a Jonathan Grenard coming from the Texans inside of the big deal with the Vikings. Maybe we should have been more in those negotiations.
Well, and you wonder too, like when you look at that first segment of games when they were generating a pass rush or at least getting sacks, right? What changed? You guys watched the team last season. What changed there? Aside from you probably don't want to rely on Dennis Gardeck to lead your team in sacks. That's not.
But
where
he was very productive. He was.
I don't want to throw any shade at him. He had 6 sacks, but that's not your guy. Right. So what changed over those last several games where they couldn't generate anything?
I think there's a combination of things. I think you began to see the deterioration of the little defensive tackle depth that they had. And I'm sure they would tell you now we've fortified that with 3 to 4 guys. LJ Collier, Darius Robinson, now Dante Stills, Bilal Nichols, and then, of course, Justin Jones. They got like 5 to 6 guys in rotation that can help the edge rushers. I also think losing Kazir White, their field general, the guy who calls their defense, probably made a difference. But I don't know. Part of it
level, man. I think you're right with Kazir. Like Kazir went out, but they didn't have really any ability. Their margin to lose anybody on the defensive line, and they were just crushed by injury. Like Jonathan Ledbetter in and out of the lineup, LJ Collier and Carlos Watkins were already lost for the year, and they're not world beaters at the position, but they at least they had played NFL snaps in their career. by like late in the season, you had guys that were playing NFL or significant snaps that had no business doing it. And they got rid of Marco Wilson, which was, it was addition by subtraction. But at the same time, you were starting how many rookies in your secondary, and, opposing offenses were probably just licking their chops.
It's impossible to judge. And again, like, I give them immense credit for gutting out wins in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. Like, this defense was the worst collection of personnel in the NFL last year. Like, we joke, that was by a steep margin. And so I will continue to give them the benefit of the doubt until they show me otherwise. Now, Craig and Bo, if they're getting smoked by a shit Seattle team late in the year, or by, Drake May in New England, then I'm going to be critical of Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis. But I feel like the defense, people aren't giving them an out right now, but they understand, like, the first 6 to 8 games, the offense has to carry this team.
Yeah, and you certainly can't. I mean, I want to make that clear, and I wrote this about Nick Rallis. You can't lay this on him, what happened in that first season, with all the things that you're talking about, aside from the fact that the guy was hired at age 29. I can't even imagine that. And this is his first coordinator job, right?
Yeah.
The personnel just wasn't there. And you knew this was going to turn over significantly with a new staff, with a new GM. So again, you can't lay it at his feet, but how much more of a free pass do you get? Maybe, as you said, through those first several games, because the opponents are so tough, it feels like expectations need to ramp up quite a bit for this defense.
Somebody was like, "Hey, Nick, this chicken salad tastes like shit." Like, yeah, it's made out of chicken shit. That's what you gave me here.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, you and I talked off air, and we talked about Budda Baker, and I feel like Budda Baker can really help himself if he finds a way to keep this unit together and overachieving to start this year. And again, that's probably not fair, but I will say, and I was quoted in Craig's article, like, I feel this way. Like, I feel like this is Budda's last year, barring something unforeseen. He would have to play at an all-worldly level. So I'll pose the same question that Craig posed to me, to my co-host, Bo Brack. Like, what's the future of Budda Baker with this team?
Yeah, and that's what, as you mentioned, one of the burning questions. It's really going to be tough, even if he does do something that traditionally he hasn't done and take the ball away. If he puts up big takeaway statistics and is kind of the, big time player that he's been in this defense since he was drafted at Washington, it's still out of the character of this organization to give him a lucrative extension. Like, and, the one thing that stood out to me in that flight plan, and that has stood out throughout since he's been drafted, is Rabbit Taylor Demerson shows some leadership qualities right out of the gate. If he can show it on the field, and our guy Baldinger was big on him coming out of Texas Tech. Like, is he an in-house successor? Is he the kind of the backup plan, or the contingent plan to Budda Baker? Then, like, I mean, we've seen the Broncos move on from Justin Simmons, who's put up crazy statistics at that position, and they just cut him, and he still hasn't found a job. And I know, like, there's all this respect paid to Budda Baker throughout the league, and including the Cardinals especially, but I just don't know. Like, it's such a kind of an enigma right now as far as what they'll do.
Well, you want to get out before you need to get out, right? And as you approach that key age of 30, which we've seen the stats are undeniable. I'm not saying it impacts every player the same way, but the overwhelming stats say you're going to see a decline in play. So do you hang on too long, or do you make the move ahead of time with good insurance policies in place?
Yeah, again, like, I'm going to sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but this time last year, they needed to find a way to give Budda more money and to extend him and to make watching the Cardinals viable in 2023. Because they did not have bankable stars. They didn't have Kyler Murray to start the year. And again, it should be about winning games. I mean, fast forward to the end of this year, you're going to have, hopefully, a solidified franchise quarterback. You're going to have a generational wide receiver, a Pro Bowl caliber tight end. You got a bunch of rookies on the defensive side that people were fired up about. Like, I'm not going to say that this team, especially if he balls out, that they're ready to move on from the leadership of Budda Baker, but they are going to be exponentially better positioned to do so. And again, there was an argument to be made last year, help us set the culture. And I hope he and James Conner get to see that through with a postseason berth this year. They deserve that. They're great pros, consummate professionals for this team. But it we're gonna know if it feels like the right time in January. And again, like I'm looking forward to watching him play. I hope he's healthy. But like, if you're asking me right now, like, what's the likelihood that they give him some lofty? I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, he came off a season where he had no pass deflections, no turnovers, and this is a defense. Their prime goal is to take the ball away. And I mean, you can play if you play a role in this defense, great. But if you're wanting to get paid by this regime, I just don't that it doesn't add up, and that's unfortunate. But at the same time, that thing is the business of the NFL.
Yeah, that's the league without a doubt.
Yeah,
it's always hard moving away from franchise legends. I mean, just the Cardinals.
Adrian Wilson before the awful allegations this offseason, when he was a top player in this organization, the team had to cut him. Right. I mean, then the same thing happened to Darnell Dockett. Like this organization, even when, you didn't have a whole lot of trust in the decision makers, were making some tough decisions even before that.
I mean, we didn't have a lot of trust in Darnell Dockett's decision making either.
Right.
Videotaping himself in showers and things like that.
Back in the old U-Street
he was
days.
a lot of fun to cover up.
Or Periscope, right? Was it Periscope days?
Yes.
That has hopefully been scrubbed from the internet. Thank you. Such a great article. I encourage everybody to go check it out. Anything, Craig, that you want to highlight specifically, because there's so many embedded nuggets in the article, and then we're going to see everybody on display this week. But, I'll pose this to both you guys. We've got a graphic to support it. Like, who do you feel like is under the most pressure to perform this training camp for the Arizona Cardinals? Bo, I'll start with you.
Are we taking a look at the graphic, or you want my answer first?
I want your answer first, then we can look at the graphic.
I think there's a ton of pressure under a second-year pass rusher in B.J. Ojulari to kind of lead that group. And, considering where he was at this time last year, and he's just getting back from, a leg injury, and when we saw him as the preseason finale, he looked behind, and he really didn't start to show up until a couple weeks in the regular season. To put that type of pressure on him to take this group to where they need to be in order to contend, I think that's huge. But at the same time, he's under contract for in the next couple seasons. So
how about Zaven Collins?
Yeah, Zaven Collins, absolutely.
He's not under contract.
Yeah, no safety net of a fifth-year option. Probably, I think that's a good point. Probably Zaven, his position mate there.
That's my guy. I think you talked me into that, by the way, Johnny. So I think that's the guy I'd have to cite. He's playing for money too. He's playing for his future at this point. Yeah. And he hasn't done enough to secure it at this point.
Is he also like kind of in a weird way, like playing for his career? Like if he goes out in the free agency market and people are like, hey, what's your position? Like, what do we do with you?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not a place you want to be in. And you guys are both right. Here are our top roughly 4 to 5 players have the most pressure this training camp. And it's Zaven Collins. And again, I would include B.J. Ojulari. How about Greg Dortch? Greg Dortch now with the spot solidified, yet he's got Zay Jones on his heel. Like he's in a contract.
Like he's waving his finger at you like, hey, how dare you?
I know. And I love Greg Dortch. And I think he responds to pressure, unlike a Rondell Moore, but I think there's pressure nonetheless. How about Clayton Tune? It's like, is he going to be active on the roster? Is he going to be a practice squad guy? Could he be inexplicably cut if Desmond Ridder looks good? Like, there's nothing guaranteed to him. And speaking of nothing guaranteed, like we mentioned, the cornerback group that's going to go up against Marv, the influx of athleticism, youth, Sean Murphy-Bunty, Max Melton. What does the future roster spot look like for guys like Keitrell Clark and Starling Thomas, who good soldiers last year, gentlemen, got you through the season, but they have upgraded considerably at that position?
Yeah, they flooded it, right? And that was the best way they could approach, fill in some of the needs at the cornerback position opposite Sean Murphy-Bunting after they secured him during the tampering period. It really is a great question. And like Max Melton, I think you can make the case for him having some pressure on his shoulders right out of the gates to outperform these guys that were thrust into starting positions last year, like Clark, and how will Starling and Clark deal with potentially being demoted and not seeing nearly as many snaps as they did in their rookie season. So yeah, I completely agree with that. But if there is, I guess, if their team first guys like Gannon likes to outline as far as he wants his entire roster to be filled with, then, they'll accept their role and hopefully try to make their best case. But at the end of the day, accept it. you'll appreciate that, and the team will have depth. But yeah, I mean, could they be on the chopping block? Absolutely. I could see either one of those guys, not receiving a spot on this roster going in to the regular season.
Yeah, there's a lot of numbers there.
Yep.
Johnny, you asked me if there's anything else I wanted to highlight. The only other thing I wanted to talk about was Paris Johnson Jr.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping he excels because I want the opportunity just to talk to Paris Johnson every week because he's unbelievable. He's an incredible quote. I've told you guys before, beat writers are pretty simple people. We just want good stories and good quotes. Paris Johnson's a good quote. And if you look at the history of this position in the Cardinals franchise, and obviously his predecessor was pretty good, but if you're looking for truly elite left tackles, you might have to go all the way back to Louis Sharp. So this has been as much of a black hole maybe as the tight end position for this franchise. I would love to see Paris step up and get it done.
Yeah, you just keep drafting Ohio State players. Like, I'm not an Ohio State fan or fanatic, but like they've just simplified it. We're like, hey, these people and players check all the boxes for it. Like you are around Paris for 5 minutes if you're a fan, if you're a media member, and you understand like this dude is super high level. Marvin, the same thing. And it's like, that's what this franchise has been missing. They have been, yes, the impact players on the field. You want grinders on Sunday mornings, but these guys are grinders Monday through Saturday. Like Paris Johnson Jr., we joke about it, Craig. It feels like he lives at the facility. Every time the Cardinals put something out, there's just Paris like off to the side. And that for the longest time, you couldn't get the Cardinals and their players to show up in the offseason for anything. Yeah.
And his want to be an Arizona Cardinal and be part of the kind of ushering in a new era of in caliber of player, what he wants to do and how he wants to endear himself to the community. But we saw it, in the flight plan when he was drafted, and he's in the, limousine coming in from draft night and just saying, this is where I always wanted to be. And that we didn't see that, often enough with this organization, that this guy wants to be a part of the solution. And he's certainly in year two already kind of walking that walk.
And knows the position he's going to play ahead of time, unlike last year where he's like, am I going to be a guard? Am I going to be a right tackle? What am I going to be doing? He's had apparently more time than we knew to prepare to be the starting left tackle this season.
Yep. It's the future is now at that position. I think it was a little bit of an accelerated timeline. It's unfortunate, as you mentioned, with DJ Humphries suffering the injury when he did, and that business decision that had to be made. But I think this is the right move to just tab Paris Johnson Jr. now and move forward and get him comfortable where he was most comfortable in college. And I think that's what people are sleeping on. Like, he had to kind of, like, not everybody's ambidextrous, right? And that's what playing the right side versus the left side is. It's like playing in the mirror, right? And I think Paris Johnson Jr., that was more of a challenge going to right tackle last year than it is for him to go back to left tackle this year.
Yeah, we're fired up. Check out his article, 10 Burning Questions as the Arizona Cardinals open up camp. If you're not following him on Twitter yet, what are you doing? Craig S. Morgan. Yes, how dare you all? And we're fired up.
Something else coming up too, right? Something soon?
Yeah, we got, we're going to have, as I mentioned in the newsletter that is going out at some point today, we're going to have written content, at least one piece of written content every day of camp. Oftentimes we're going to have more than 2 pieces of content, but the next one coming out is a look at the best position battles in camp. And you guys obviously helped me with that one a lot too.
Can you guys tease any of the fun stuff you guys will be doing on the road this year? Are we allowed to talk about that, or is that kind of under the rug right now?
I don't think anything is like solidified there. So we would be just talking way out of our behinds.
Above our pay grade. Well, absolutely.
I mean, Miami. We're all doing Miami.
Absolutely. We're covering every spectrum of the Arizona Cardinals this season, and we've leveled up big with Craig Morgan. Craig, thank you so much for joining us, my guy.
All right, guys. I'll see you soon.
All right, Craig.
Fired up about Craig, fired up about our friends at Desert Financial Credit Union, the official credit union of the Arizona Cardinals. Their money, just like Craig. Check them out. For more than 84 years, Desert Financial has been Arizona's largest, most trusted local credit union, dedicating to creating exceptional experiences by giving back to the community and providing financial solutions that make lives better. Again, you got a checking account. What about a savings account? What about a loan? You need a personal loan? What about a mortgage? Check mortgage rates right now with Desert Financial Credit Union. How about a credit card, investment options, and more? Level up your financial acumen today. They've got real life people offering financial solutions tailored to helping you and me achieve our financial goals and dreams. Again, this isn't a transaction. This isn't a walk up. This is folks that are going to take the time to explain what you need to know to make sure you're protected. And again, do you one better represent the Red Sea with the Arizona Cardinal Visa debit card? Show your team spirit online by opening up a free checking account to desertfinancial.com/Cardinals, Bo, to get started.
I learned a lesson from our young producer, Damon, Dawg, that when you're traveling from California and making your way back into the desert, it's probably a good idea to fill up a little bit before you make that trek so you're not hitting Yuma on fumes. So what I did is I found a Circle K in the San Diego area, and I got loaded up at America's Thirst Shop, of course, with Polar Pops and Frosters and my favorite snacks, and got some of the best price gas you could find in California. It's a pretty high price right now. But then also got back into our great state, hit the nearest Circle K there, topped it off, and then made our way all the way back to Phoenix, safe and sound, thanks to our friends over at Circle K, in saving money, more money than even those who just frequent the pumps at Circle K, because I became a member of the Inner Circle, and you can too. It's a free membership program. Just go to Circle K, download the app in the App Store, or visit CircleK.com for more details. Hit the terms and conditions that apply. They're at, of course, participating locations, but you can save yourself right out of the gates 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups, 3 cents per gallon after that, and then you can hit an echelon where it's up to 5 to 10 cents. You can only find out for yourself. Download the Circle K Inner Circle app right now in the App Store and find more details, CircleK.com.
Let's get back to some of these super chats here. Brock, $9.99. Thank you so much for supporting the channel on this level. Oh, does my Bubba Bo have the sniffles? It's okay, Bubba. Drink your cough syrup. Anyways, hey, MP, drop your Zelle GoFundMe so people can pay the gas money you spent to defend Caleb Williams. MP's been putting on timeout. I think he's back from timeout, but we appreciate the banter nonetheless. Thank you, Brock.
Always appreciate the goat Brock chiming in with the baby talk. And yes, I got a little case of the sniffles, but it's all right. We're on the mend.
That's right. Didi, $4.99, friend of the program. Thank you, JV, Bo, Damon, Dawg, and PHNX Forever for all the hard work this offseason. We appreciate it. We had a blast doing it. I mean, we've grown exponentially this offseason as a beat, and that's a big thank you to all of you. From January to now, this team has changed. This beat has changed for the better. You think back to when Bo and Damon were at Senior Bowl week, and we were at Super Bowl, Combine.
You're going to make me emotional thinking about it.
The draft saga. I mean, like, it, as much as the Cardinals have put in the time this offseason, I feel like we put in the time, and we need to see successful football this fall. Like, we deserve it. Cardinal fans, PHNX Cardinal community, we need some dubs on Sundays.
Yep. Johnny says we deserve it. You deserve it. You out there all deserve it. You've endured a lot.
We have. Last year, we knew what we were getting into. This year, let's see some competent football. Does Pro Football Focus think the Cardinals are competent? Not if you look at their top 50 NFL players entering this season. Spoiler alert, the Cardinals had 0. The 49ers had about a fifth of that list. So I ask you, Brock, is this warranted? And at the same time, what do the Cardinals need to do to get a player in the top 50, to get several players in the top 50 this year?
I think Trent McBride makes his case. He absolutely should finish, depending on what scoring you're looking at. He's a top 7 tight end. But maybe they're not giving as much credit to that position. But like I said in the first segment, I think this is a prove it year for the Cardinals. I think if we're sitting here and the same is being said next year at this time, then you can be concerned, you can be really pissed off. But like, I think the Cardinals have a ton to prove, like statistically, analytically, whatever it may be. You can't find the data that supports them getting a ton of credit, even though I think that they're completely overlooked. But look, if the Pro Football Network wants to make a top 50 and they omit the Cardinals, like, until they start winning football games and starting kind of forcing the issue, I'm fine with it. And I think they will. I absolutely think they will.
It does feel like, to your point, like the Cardinals are on the cusp with a bunch of guys that I think can take off this year. Like I like Paris, Marvin, Trey to the next level, Kyler Murray back, Michael Wilson, like a couple guys on the defensive side of the ball, Ojulari, right, and Garrett Williams. Like, they have candidates, and that's a good place to be. And they can go one of two ways. So I'm not stressed about it. And Pro Football Focus also highlighted one move that every team should make before the start of the regular season, and actually kind of gave a compliment to our precious Redbirds. They said they should extend one Hjalte Froholdt, Bo Brack, which I think you and I have been clamoring for. This is from Pro Football Focus today. The Big Dane earned a 64.1 PFF overall grade in 2023, ranking 19th among centers, and his pass run blocking grades were both top 20. The hope is another year will help him improve the chemistry of the Cardinals offensive line that gave up the 12th most sacks in the NFL last year. The pathway to that for Arizona can start extending the center of the unit. I think this absolutely should be done. I would have no issue if they came out and had a presser tomorrow. They didn't draft an heir apparent in the draft. They could certainly do that next spring, but why would you? He's 26, 27, 28 years old. You get many more mileage off of somebody who didn't play a bunch of snaps early in his career for Cleveland. A lot of mileage left on that body. Very close with Kyler Murray. I think like a 3-year contract extension makes a lot of sense for this team.
Yeah, he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink in the weight room. Like he's known for his legendary workouts, and it kind of has fueled the competition that's going on in there. And Paris Johnson Jr. kind of talked about that as well. But I think Hjalte is kind of the point man on that. Yeah. And he's 27 now. He's kind of in the prime as you would be looking for most any player, but especially offensive line. And that center position where it's so cerebral, I think he's got what it takes between the ears. And yeah, why not? And I want to give the flowers to the author of this from Pro Football Focus. Very rarely do we do this, Damon, Dawg, Johnny, where Thomas Valentine, congratulations, ball. That's a great take that the Cardinals should be already talking and trying to work out an extension for Hjalte Froholdt.
Yeah, rare knower of ball as it relates to the Cardinals this offseason. There are so much kind of clickbaity stuff out there right now. Top 100, top 10. Who's going to break out? Like ESPN, I didn't even reference it as a graphic. I didn't think it was worth the time. ESPN had a ranking of teams that are basically have the best kind of 3-year window to get better, to just improve. The Cardinals were 28th on that list. They're one of the youngest teams in the NFL. Yeah. They've got promise with their head coach. They've got a quarterback under contract. I mean, it didn't make a lot of sense. 28th, only,
Who wrote that?
It was multiple sources on ESPN. Wow. So again, we can only assume we're blessed with the writings of the Mike Tannenbaums of the world, but it was a tough one. Projecting the next 3 years for all 32 NFL teams. And again, like they're 11 on the Bears, they're 11 on Houston. They only have the Cardinals above the Raiders, the Saints, the Panthers, and the Giants. They do not think highly of, they gave JG, they ranked him 30th in coaching, 22nd in front office, 23rd on quarterbacks, Kyler Murray, 23rd on quarterbacks, and 27th overall.
That's gross.
Roster construction.
They're just not paying attention, right?
No,
I mean,
it's
like we reference it all the time. Mina Kimes admitted, like she was one of the very few people that covered this game nationally that paid attention to the Cardinals. And that if there was a piece of work this offseason that points to that's this article from ESPN. My God.
They had the Patriots and the Titans ahead of the Cardinals.
25 first and second year players. Like there's a youth infusion going on right now, infusion for the Arizona Cardinals. And their window improved. Like they've got them all the way down at 28. This doesn't make sense to me.
Danny Redbirds, $9.99 super chat. Danny, friend of the program. I lost years off the back end from this offseason on this channel. Playoffs or bust. Shout out to the boys, Johnny and Bo. Shout out to all the Damon dogs on the chat. Let's go 24 cards. We appreciate you, Danny. And again, the Cardinal fans after this offseason have reason for hope and optimism. And it doesn't mean if it doesn't end with a playoff spot, playoff berth, like people are going to be disappointed, but it doesn't mean that this team isn't going in the right direction. Right. I just feel like when was the last time in Arizona with this team you went into a season with this kind of lack of cachet nationally, and you surprised everybody, and you just kind of said, F it, and you made the playoffs. Like, we deserve that. Like, kind of like the Diamondbacks World Series run last year. Like, we need something like that with this team. Fan base deserves it, just to kind of stick it to everybody.
Right. Signs of optimism, reasons to be optimistic. And this organization has, I think, the ingredients for that. And
they do.
And look, obviously, I think Gannon and everybody knows this. Like, it, like last year was a free pass in a sense. Like they had to prove themselves to an extent, but they weren't going to be judged as far as how many games they won or lost.
Right.
Now they understand that the pressure to win games starts this season. And like if they lose to games against teams that people would consider they shouldn't lose to, like the Patriots of the world, the Panthers of the world, then the pressure will continue to mount and that the seat will get hot. But as of right now, people are riding this wave of momentum that they created with the goodwill that they kind of cultivated last year with the culture change. So like, can the culture change? Can it match the hype? Can it provide wins this season? And that's going to be huge. I saw USA Today did their predictions for the season. I sent this to you. I apologize if you were eating lunch because they had to, take it with a grain of salt. They had the Jets winning the Super Bowl. Them a 40-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles injury, and he's 3 years removed from his best season, but they're going to win the Super Bowl. They have the Cardinals going 7-10.
Yeah,
I give you the opportunity to you say no to a 7-10 season. Would you be disgusted by a 7-10 finish?
I wouldn't be disgusted by it. I'd be disappointed, and a lot of it would be the optics of how it looked. I think that those are good expectations to have, though. Like, and again, by the way,
where are you right now signing up for the day before the players report? What would you sign up for right now? What's like the bare minimum?
I think anything that doesn't include double-digit losses, I would sign up for. I think you could get into the postseason at 8-9. I don't think it's likely, but I think you're in contention. And you've put together a very competent year 200 JG in a division that's brutal. I don't want to see this team lose double-digit games, so I would sign up for anything 8-9 or better. But I still wouldn't. I think this team has a real chance. I genuinely believe this, to play January football, to play playoff football. And again, when I watch Baker Mayfield's ass make the divisional round, I'm sorry, like it's hard for me not to think Kyler Murray's healthy. They can do that, right? Geno Smith, like why are the Cardinals, get out of here, Shano? Why would the Cardinals Cardinal fans think anything different? Like, do not let the national media pollute your mind into thinking this team is like a poverty goodwill franchise right now. Like, they have athletic, competent players. They have what we think is a high-level coaching staff that's envious of a lot of other teams in the NFL. They just have to put it all together. Yeah. But it starts and ends with, if Kyler Murray plays well, they have a chance to make the playoffs. Yeah. And that's all you got to ask for.
Our guy Shaft saying 7-10 would still be a step in the right direction, but not happy. And yeah, I mean, going through and suffering 10 losses, like that's tough. Double-digit losses are tough, especially coming off back-to-back 4-13 seasons. But you nearly double your win total from the previous season. And then also you have to take in consideration, like, of those 10 losses, you're probably close in a couple of them. And you're, play here or there away from winning those football games. So there's going to be progress that's going to be shown in tough luck losses as well.
I'll be the antagonist there. They should have won 5 games last year.
They should have. Thank you,
Now we're only adding 2.
Okay.
And that, to me, is not enough given the influx of talent in a full season of Kyler Murray. I think 8 wins minimum is what you have to get to not be disappointed. I think
that's what you're signing the dotted line on, bare minimum.
And I think 9 and above, you celebrate it.
Okay.
This is a tremendous point from our producer, Damon Dawg, who paid attention to last year. These national people are not paying attention. The Cardinals were unwatchable at times last year with Clayton Tune and Joshua Dobbs, and you should have still won 5 to 7 games last year. Like, Kyler Murray should have been 4-4. They blew the game to the Commanders. They blew the game to the Giants. Those teams had much better personnel. And again, go back and look at the schedule. How many times are they going to have a QB favorable matchup in their odds in their favor with Kyler Murray? I would say at least 8 times. Like, it's going to come down to Jonathan Gannon, and this is one of Craig's burning questions. Can he hang in the NFC West?
Yeah.
Like, you do not talk to me if you're losing to Geno Smith and Old McDonald late in the season once or twice. Like, I'm not going to have the stomach for that. Yeah. You want to have a conversation about levels of competing with Shanahan and McVay? I'll buy that, right? They don't have the personnel right now, those two teams. You can't be losing to the Seahawks. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not taking the Seahawks seriously. If you're paying Kyler Murray that amount of money, you need to be more competitive than what we saw last year against the Seahawks.
You'll be relieved to find out USA Today had the Seahawks finishing last in the NFC West. I think winning just 5 games.
That's correct.
And there's there was probably about 5 teams on the Cardinals schedule that won less than 5 games. Like the Panthers, the Patriots, and I think Washington was in there at like 7. So like those should be viewed as winnable games. And if you just kind of win those games, you're in a great spot, and then you surprise some people against some teams that you have no business beating.
Damon, let's see. Let's see the schedule. Let's go. Let's get the schedule real quick. Because I'm
player report Eve. We're doing this.
We're doing it again. I've already predicted this team's going to win 10 games. All right. Those first 8 games, and we're going to be in Miami, by the way, True Fan Travel. If you go 3-5, and I know that's not ideal for people to hear, if you're at 3-5 through 8 games, you have a damn good chance to make the playoffs. I think you can win 6 of the next 9 games with a lot of Panthers, Patriots, Seahawks, Sam Darnold, McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers, one leg, a rookie Caleb Williams. Like you are viable at 3-5. So as much as that early part of your schedule is not ideal, there is a little bit of margin for error, which I'll tell you right now, this team, if you win 2 of your first 4, you are playing with house money. Yeah. We're going to be feeling really good. You just can't wet the bed and be 2-6 or 1-7. And we got a shot.
And according to USA Today, like weeks 12 through 16, every single one of those teams they project as 5 wins or less. So
hello.
Take care of business there. Too. Huh? Minnesota. Yeah, they got Minnesota being like 5-12. So Seahawks 5-12, Minnesota 5-12, Seahawks again, Patriots the worst team in the league according to them, and the Panthers not really rebounding after a brutal season. You got to stack wins at that point. But what Johnny's saying is, if you hold your head above water 1 through 8, then there in that stretch, you're going to put yourself in a really good spot going into the final 2 weeks of the season.
If they lose to the Commanders, the season's over. But let's just assume they beat the Commanders. Real quick, let's see that one more time.
You're saying double-digit wins, playoffs, and then you're calling it a season. If
you know me, I get extra emotional during the season after losses. If they beat the Commanders, and we're trying to get to the 3-win mark by week 9 to remain viable, all they got to do is they got to win 2 of 4 against a rebuilding Charger team, a Dolphin team with a suspect defense, a Packer team that we'll see how they are, and then, of course, San Francisco. They could conceivably start 0-3 and still make a playoff push. So, again, we're going to be living and dying with these early Sunday games. It's going to be
tough. Times will be tough on this podcast for my boy Johnny.
Well, for everybody.
I actually agree with Johnny, though. You lose that Commanders game. How do you come back from that?
Yeah, that would be bad.
Cliff Kingsbury comes into your building and beats you. I love Jonathan Gannon. It's going to be very difficult.
And their defense was atrocious last year. It gave the most points.
Their personnel is awful.
Yeah.
Damon broke it down on last week's show. It's just it's what the Cardinals used to do, signing players way over the hill.
Right.
Zach Ertz and Austin Eckler as your primary skill players. That's a joke. I'm sorry.
I loved it so much when Adam Perry, who's the basically the GM there, I think he's the president of football operations, but he turned down the opportunity to interview for the Cardinals GM role, and then he gets his opportunity in Washington, and then he puts forth this offseason. I loved watching that happen. You want to kick the tires on Austin Eckler? Let me tell you, it's not worth it. That tire's flat. He's slow. He's washed.
Jalen Blair, $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Jalen, friend of the program, for the support on that level. Team will be as good as the defense. In K1's 5 years, defense has finished 28th, 12th, 12th, 31st, and 31st. Never won more than 5 games in those years. The defense was 28th or worse. Defense has to be average. I even think they can be a little bit less than. I think you get the 20th ranked defense right around there. I think you'll be okay because Jalen, I think the offense is going to be rock solid, superstar offense.
Yeah, man, Vance 12th and 12th, and then 31st. And is that according to yards or points or total defense? DVOA?
I would imagine.
Yeah,
Vance low key really bad at his job as a defensive coordinator. Not very good at all. We've got almost 700 people watching it live through multiple platforms. If you're on the YouTubes, hit that like button, subscribe to PHNX Sports here on YouTube. We need everybody to help us get to 30,000 subscribers on the eve of training camp. And this is also a good time to remind everybody we are headed to South Beach. this fall from October 25th through the 28th via our friends at TrueFan Travel, truefantravel.com. Myself, Bo Brock, Damon, Dawg, the GM Saul Bookman, and more. Hollywood Beach, poolside, beachfront property. You into that? How about packages starting as low as $12.99? Travel to and from the airport, booze cruise, alumni event, tailgating, and hanging with all of us en route to some really nice tickets to watch Kyler Murray and company beat that ass in Miami. The best road trip you will have this year, October 25th through the 28th, from our friends at TrueFan Travel. The Arizona Cardinals take on the Dolphins, and PHNX Cardinals Bo takes on South Beach.
That's right. As you mentioned, Johnny, Damon, Dawg, GM Saul Bookman, myself, you, ? Make it happen. Go phnx.com/events. Easiest way you can find that, or truefantravel.com. Like we said, I mean, all the events going down, including the potential nuptials of one Damon Dawg. Is he going to find that lucky one? You want to be there. You don't want to miss out.
Don't miss out on all the exclusive audio content, not just the live shows, supplemental content, and more. Now is the time. Go to your smartphone, your mobile device. We're very fortunate. A nice following on here. We want to up it. We want to up our game this year on our audio downloads. We need your help. Everybody grab your phone right now. Go to your podcast feed. Type in PHNX Cardinals. And then just click that little checkmark icon. Give us a follow. And if you're so inclined, give us a 5-star review. It helps the show exponentially. It helps more people find it. And the more people find it, the more cool stuff we're able to do over the course of a calendar year. Bo, it's great to have you back here, my friend.
Great to be back, my man. And remember, training camp players report tomorrow. Make sure to put out those electrolytes, those protein bars. JG, he'll deliver some fire in your gut tonight if you do so.
Donuts?
No, donuts. That's not winning behavior. Remember that. For Johnny Venerable, Damon, Dawg, myself, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you tomorrow. PHNX Cardinals.
We all silly like the mayor.